the river is never still. Beneath the shifting surface of the Amazon, light bends and fractures against a world where survival is written in the smallest vibrations. To most eyes, the water looks calm, carrying silt and drifting leaves, but below that veil lives one of nature's most misunderstood creatures, the piranha. For generations, stories of their ferocity have traveled farther than the river itself, tales of stripped carcasses, of entire shoals reducing intruders to bone in moments. Yet the truth is both more complex and more fascinating than the legends. The piranha is not simply a predator of chaos. In the broader ecology of the Amazon, it behaves as an enforcer, a regulator, a creature whose biology and instincts bind it tightly to the health of the waters it calls home. A school of red-bellied piranhas moves as though pulled by a single thread, hundreds of bodies turning in perfect synchrony. To watch them is to witness an emergent intelligence, not of the individual, but of the group. Each fish, rarely more than 30 centimeters long, would pose little threat on its own. It is the swarm that transforms them into one of the river's most efficient engines of consumption. Their razor-sharp teeth interlock like shears, capable of slicing through muscle and tendon with shocking precision. The sound of a feeding frenzy, often compared to the tearing of wet fabric, is as distinctive as it is chilling. But this violent spectacle is only one aspect of their role. More often, these fish act as scavengers, quickly consuming weakened or dead animals that would otherwise foul the water with disease. In this sense, they are janitors as much as hunters, preventing the river from stagnating with rot. Their sensory adaptations explain how they fulfill this role so effectively. Piranhas are exquisitely tuned to disturbance. Lateral line systems running along their bodies detect subtle pressure changes. The faint thrash of a struggling fish, the ripple of a falling branch, even the quiver of an insect at the surface. Their eyes, built for low-light vision, pick up flashes and shadows where other species see only murk. Together, these senses allow them to locate opportunities with astonishing speed, converging on weakness in seconds. To the ecosystem, this means that nothing vulnerable lasts long in the water. Injury, disease, and decay are swiftly erased, reinforcing a biological contract. The strong survive, the compromised are removed, and the flow of life continues unpolluted. It is easy to imagine the piranha as mindless, but their behavior reveals sophistication. Researchers have documented how schools often hesitate before launching into a frenzy, circling prey in apparent assessment. They probe, they test, they communicate through subtle changes in body angle and fin vibration. Their aggression peaks not at random, but when conditions demand urgency, during low water seasons when resources shrink, or when blood in the water signals a sudden opportunity. Even within the chaos of feeding, there is order. Individuals rarely strike blindly at one another, an indication that schooling behavior suppresses the kind of self-destructive competition one might expect. The pact of the piranha, then, is not simply with the river, but with each other, bound into a cooperative force that ensures collective survival. Despite their fearsome reputation, most encounters between piranhas and large animals, including humans, end without incident. Tapirs and capybaras regularly wade into the shallows, parting schools of piranhas that seem entirely indifferent to their passage. Predation is opportunistic, not indiscriminate. A healthy animal, moving with purpose, is rarely attacked. Instead, piranhas target the vulnerable, an injured fish, a bird chick that has fallen from a nest, or the carcass of something already dead. In this way, their role echoes that of vultures in the sky or hyenas on the savannah, creatures vilified for brutality, yet indispensable for preventing the spread of disease. Without them, the river would choke on its own abundance. The biology of their teeth underscores this function. Each tooth is triangular and razor-edged, designed less for tearing than for slicing, like hundreds of surgical scalpels arranged in rows. Unlike human teeth, which wear down, piranha teeth are replaced in coordinated sets. When one row dulls, it is shed and a fresh row emerges, sharp as ever. This cycle ensures that the swarm's collective arsenal never fails. The mechanics of the jaw amplify this precision. A powerful bite force relative to body size, combined with quick strike motion, means that each snap can remove a clean piece of flesh with minimal effort. In ecological terms, this efficiency allows carcasses to be dismantled rapidly, distributed among hundreds of mouths, and recycled into nutrients for the river. The timing of their life cycles further binds them to the river's rhythms. Piranhas spawn during the flood season, when the Amazon overflows its banks and transforms the landscape into a vast aquatic labyrinth. Shallow floodplains, rich with vegetation and insect life, provide shelter and food for the young. As the waters recede, survival becomes harder. Fish are forced into concentrated channels, competition sharpens, and the collective strategy of the school becomes critical. By aligning their reproduction with the river's pulse, piranhas ensure not only their own survival, but also the constant replenishment of the ecological service they provide. The pact is seasonal, renewed year after year, written in the flood and drought cycles that shape the Amazon itself. Predator-prey dynamics reveal the piranha's influence in subtler ways. Their presence alone alters the behavior of other animals. Capybaras hesitate before crossing narrow streams, birds avoid low branches that hang too close to the water, and caimans use caution when defending territory near dense schools. Even large predators respect the deterrent of the swarm. This ripple effect, the power to shape behavior simply by existing, is called the ecology of fear. It illustrates how piranhas enforce order without constant violence, a silent guardianship that keeps the river's community in check. Curiously, piranhas themselves are prey. Dolphins, caimans, and larger fish species regularly hunt them, suggesting that their ferocity does not make them invincible. This predation prevents piranha populations from overwhelming the system. Here lies another irony of the pact. The guardians must also be kept in balance, or their enforcement would become tyranny. Evolution has engineered a feedback loop in which even the enforcers are subject to the same rules they impose. The river, in this sense, tolerates no absolute dominance. For all their biological adaptations, piranhas are also vulnerable to environmental change. Overfishing, pollution, and damming disrupt the delicate balance that supports their life cycles. When floodplains shrink or become toxic, spawning grounds disappear. When human waste enters the system, food webs collapse, and scavengers like piranhas may either decline or surge uncontrollably. Both outcomes destabilize the pact, removing the careful checks and balances that keep the river alive. Understanding the true role of the piranha means recognizing that their survival is tied to the survival of the Amazon itself. Ultimately, to view the piranha only as a threat is to miss their significance. They are not villains of the Amazon, but its regulators, soldiers in a system that demands constant vigilance. Their collective ferocity, their sensory precision, their relentless efficiency all point toward a deeper role, to cleanse, to enforce, to remind every creature that the river accepts only the fit, the healthy, and the resilient. In the mythology of the jungle, they are the teeth of the pact, sharp and uncompromising, ensuring that life continues to flow without corruption. The rain has only just stopped. Droplets cling to every leaf, magnifying the green of the understory until it seems the forest itself is glowing. On a slick, moss-covered log sits a creature so small it could rest comfortably on the tip of a finger. Its skin burns neon yellow against the dark wood, a beacon in a world where most animals rely on camouflage to survive. This is a poison dart frog, one of the Amazon's most striking paradoxes. Fragile in body, yet armed with toxins capable of killing creatures many times its size. To see one in motion is to witness a biological warning system at work. Every hop, every pause, every turn of its small, bright body sends a message across the jungle floor. I am not to be touched. These colors are not decoration. They are chemical billboards, evolutionary signage coded through millennia of predator-prey interaction. Where the jaguar stalks unseen and the anaconda hides in the dark waters, the dart frog thrives by being the opposite, impossible to ignore. In the dense complexity of the Amazon, where survival strategies are endlessly varied, the dart frog's boldness is a form of honesty. It tells the truth about what it carries, and predators that fail to heed the message rarely get a second chance. The toxins that give the frog its power are some of the most potent natural chemicals known to science. Batrachiotoxin, present in the skin of certain species, can paralyze and kill by locking open sodium channels in nerves and muscles. Just a few micrograms are enough to prove fatal to a predator, or even a human. And yet the frog itself is unharmed, living comfortably with its chemical arsenal. This immunity is the result of molecular adaptations that shield its own sodium channels from being affected. In other words, the frog has not just developed poison, it has rewritten its own physiology to carry it safely, turning its entire body into a walking chemical weapon. Curiously, these toxins are not produced internally, but derived from diet. Studies suggest that the frogs accumulate their chemical defenses from consuming alkaloid-rich prey, such as ants, mites, and beetles. Frogs raised in captivity on a bland diet lack the same potency, their colors still vivid, but their skins harmless. This detail reveals a hidden ecological relationship. The frog's role in the pact is not solitary. Its warning system depends on the biodiversity of its environment, the endless supply of small arthropods that supply the raw materials for its defense. The dart frog, in this sense, is a distillation of the forest itself, a creature whose power reflects the complexity of its food web. Predators know this, even if unconsciously. Birds, snakes, and mammals learn quickly to avoid the bright colors of poison frogs, a phenomenon known as aposematism. The association between warning colors and danger is so deeply ingrained that even species which mimic the dart frog's patterns without carrying the same toxins enjoy a degree of protection. This mimicry, called Batesian mimicry, illustrates how powerful the frog's reputation has become. It shapes not only its own survival, but the survival strategies of entirely different species, echoing through the forest like a ripple effect of fear and respect. But deterrence is not simply about avoiding predation. By surviving where many small amphibians would be vulnerable, dart frogs secure ecological niches others cannot. They thrive in the leaf litter, hunting invertebrates with their sticky, extendable tongues. Their small size allows them to exploit microhabitats, the damp curl of a bromeliad leaf, the hollow of a rotting branch, the dark soil beneath decomposing vegetation. In doing so, they regulate insect populations, indirectly controlling disease vectors and contributing to the overall health of the forest floor. The very toxins that make them dangerous to predators also grant them freedom to live boldly, to move and feed in the open without constant fear. Their reproduction adds another layer of intrigue. Unlike many amphibians that release eggs into the water, some dart frog species display extraordinary parental care. Males guard clutches of eggs laid on leaves, keeping them moist with periodic trips to collect water in their bodies. When the eggs hatch, the tiny tadpoles are carried piggyback to small pools in plants or rain-filled crevices. In certain species, females then feed the tadpoles with unfertilized eggs, sustaining them until they metamorphose. This level of care is rare among amphibians and demonstrates how survival in the Amazon demands more than toxins and warning colors. It requires strategies that guarantee the next generation survives in an environment where countless predators wait at every stage of life. Such behaviors highlight a theme running through the Amazon: fragility matched by resilience. The dart frog, barely larger than a coin, faces odds stacked against it from the moment it emerges. Yet evolution has armed it with a combination of chemical defense, vivid communication, and parental investment that allows it not just to endure, but to flourish. This combination makes the frog more than a mere inhabitant of the river's edge. It makes it an essential node in the network, a deterrent woven into the living fabric of the ecosystem. And here lies the deeper theory. Perhaps the frog's poison is not merely an evolutionary adaptation, but a kind of biochemical firewall. In the same way that fire breaks halt the spread of wildfires, the dart frog's toxins create zones of deterrence in the forest. Predators learn to avoid bright colors. Insects evolve under the pressure of becoming either toxic or invisible, and the balance of predation shifts towards stability. The frog becomes a signal not just for itself, but for the ecosystem as a whole, reminding all who encounter it that danger can come in the smallest of packages. The frog's role in the river's pact may be as a sentinel, a living alarm system designed to warn, to deter, and to prevent breaches of balance. Without creatures like it, the Amazon would lose one of its most effective regulators, and the entire web of predator and prey would shift. The pact depends on diversity, on each member fulfilling a role that cannot be replicated by another. The piranha enforces through consumption, the dart frog through chemical deterrence. One clears, the other warns. Together, they form a kind of law, not written in words but in biology, enforced with teeth and toxins. Even so, this system is vulnerable. Habitat loss, climate change, and pollution threaten dart frogs across the Amazon. Reduced insect diversity diminishes their chemical arsenal, leaving them defenseless in ways unseen at first glance. Their bright skins may remain, but the toxins may fade, turning once lethal warnings into hollow bluffs. In such a scenario, the pact weakens. Predators relearn old habits, populations collapse, and the intricate balance unravels. In the end, the poison dart frog is more than an icon of the rainforest's beauty. It is a reminder of how small creatures can wield immense influence, not through strength or size, but through the chemistry of survival. Its skin tells a story of alliances with insects, of deterrence woven into color, of danger concentrated into a body no larger than a thumb. To watch it perched on a mossy log, glowing in the aftermath of rain, is to glimpse the jungle's warning system in its purest form. It is both fragile and unyielding, silent yet unmissable, a beacon of survival that continues to flash in the dim light of the Amazon floor. The Amazon forest floor is rarely quiet, but there are moments when sound itself seems to bend toward one source. Leaves tremble, insects scatter, and a faint rustling grows into a steady, living roar. Then it comes into view, a dark, undulating river of bodies pouring forward with tireless precision. This is not a single animal, but hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of army ants in relentless procession. Their advance transforms the forest, reordering it as they move, consuming everything too weak, too slow, or too careless to escape. For all its grandeur, the Amazon is vulnerable to imbalance, to disease, to unchecked decay. And here, in the endless march of ants, lies one of nature's most efficient corrective forces. Army ants, particularly Echiton buccelli, are the architects of this phenomenon. Unlike many ants that construct permanent nests, these nomadic hunters form temporary bivouacs made entirely of their own bodies. Workers link legs and mandibles together, weaving themselves into living walls and chambers that house the queen and her brood. By day, the colony surges outward in vast columns, foraging across the understory with astonishing coordination. By night, they regroup, reshaping the bivouac in a new location, never lingering long enough for competitors or parasites to gain an advantage. This perpetual cycle of movement makes them more than simple predators. It makes them engines of disturbance, shaking the forest out of complacency and forcing adaptation on every creature they encounter. Their coordination is so precise that the colony functions as a single organism. Individual ants are nearly blind, yet through pheromone trails and tactile signals, they communicate seamlessly, creating waves of behavior that ripple outward. When one ant detects prey, chemical cues cascade through the swarm, drawing reinforcements instantly. The effect is a decentralized intelligence, a kind of distributed brain spread across hundreds of thousands of bodies. No single ant understands the colony's strategy, but collectively they achieve feats of predation and navigation that rival the efficiency of vertebrate hunters. It is this emergent intelligence, a superorganism born of countless small actions, that defines the army ant's role in the river's PACT. The ecological impact of a single raid is profound. As the columns move, insects, spiders, and small vertebrates erupt in frantic flight. Many escape, but those that stumble or hesitate are seized by relentless mandibles. Even creatures far too large to be overwhelmed outright feel the ripple effect. Nesting birds abandon their broods, lizards vacate territories, and mammals give wide berth to the advancing swarm. The army ants do not merely consume, they displace, they redirect, they dictate the flow of life on the forest floor. The Amazon's smaller inhabitants have evolved alongside this constant threat, their survival strategies shaped by the need to anticipate the next wave of black bodies. And yet, paradoxically, this destruction creates opportunity. The march of the ants drives prey from hiding, offering easy meals to a host of specialized predators that shadow the swarm. Birds such as antbirds and tanagers perch just above the columns, darting down to snatch fleeing insects. Lizards and frogs exploit the chaos as well, capturing prey that would otherwise remain hidden. In this sense, the ants function as ecological engineers, stirring the forest into a temporary frenzy of activity that redistributes resources. Without them, many species that depend on these opportunities would struggle to survive. What looks like devastation is, in fact, an act of renewal, a way of ensuring that no single population grows too dominant, that the balance of predator and prey remains fluid. The scale of their foraging is staggering. A large colony can consume tens of thousands of prey items in a single day, ranging from insect larvae to small vertebrates. But their appetite is not indiscriminate. They target the weak, the vulnerable, the unprotected, larvae in nests, animals caught off guard, individuals separated from groups. In doing so, they act as a selective pressure, pruning the forest of its excess and reinforcing resilience in those that remain. Species that survive repeated encounters with army ants do so because they are faster, more vigilant, or better defended, qualities that ripple through generations and shape evolutionary trajectories. The ants themselves are a hierarchy of forms, each caste adapted to its role. Small workers scout and tend to the brood. Medium workers form the majority of the raiding force, while large-headed soldiers stand guard along the flanks, their massive mandibles ready to repel threats. The queen, the heart of the colony, is an egg-laying engine, producing thousands of offspring daily to sustain the relentless march. This division of labor allows the colony to act with flexibility, shifting strategies according to conditions. It is as though the superorganism can reconfigure its own body, adapting in real time to whatever challenge it faces. The ant's nomadic cycle is dictated by the queen's reproductive rhythm. When she is laying eggs, the colony remains in a stationary, statory phase, foraging outward but returning to the same bivouac each night. When the eggs hatch and the demand for food spikes, the colony enters a nomadic phase, moving daily to new hunting grounds. This rhythm ensures that food supplies are not exhausted in one location, and that the colony's pressure on the ecosystem is spread across vast territories. In this way, the ants become not just predators, but regulators of space, preventing stagnation and forcing continual renewal in the micro-habitats they traverse. The sensory adaptations that make this possible are subtle but powerful. Ants rely heavily on chemical communication, their antennae constantly tasting the world around them. A single pheromone trail can mobilize thousands, while alarm pheromones spread like fire through the ranks, triggering instant aggression. This chemical language is so complex that researchers describe it as a kind of grammar, a structured system of signals that can be combined to produce different meanings. It is through this invisible web of scent that the colony achieves unity, as if bound together by threads of information that no eye can see. From a broader perspective, the army ant's march resembles circuitry. Their columns branch and merge like electrical pathways, pulses of life energy flowing through the forest in patterns both chaotic and precise. Each raid is a surge, each bivouac a temporary node, and the forest itself becomes a vast, living circuit board etched by the movements of these insects. To imagine them as the river's engineers is not far-fetched. They carve invisible pathways through the ecosystem, ensuring that energy, in the form of prey, fear, and opportunity, continues to circulate without stagnation. Without their constant disturbance, the balance of the forest floor might calcify, populations rising unchecked, decay accumulating without release. But even this formidable system has vulnerabilities. Colonies are preyed upon by larger animals, from anteaters that rip apart bivouacs to birds that specialize in picking off stragglers. Parasites infiltrate the ranks, laying eggs that hatch into larvae feeding on unsuspecting workers. Fungal infections sweep through when conditions turn too damp. The superorganism is powerful, but it is not invincible. This ensures that army ants too remain part of the pact, rather than masters of it, bound by the same rules of balance they enforce on others. In human imagination, army ants often embody terror. their relentless advance cast as a threat to everything in their path. And yet, within the Amazon, they are respected not for destruction, but for order. Their presence is a reminder that no creature, no matter how small, is beyond consequence. They are both predators and purifiers, removing weakness and opening space for renewal. To see them move is to watch a living system at work, a demonstration of how collective behavior can achieve what no individual could ever hope to accomplish. Perhaps their endless march is not just a hunt, but a message that the forest thrives on movement, on disruption, on the constant circulation of energy and life. In their black, flowing rivers of bodies, one can glimpse the deeper truth of the Amazon itself. A system that survives not through stability, but through perpetual motion. The army ants are its enforcers, its engineers, and perhaps even its circuitry, weaving threads of order across a landscape that would otherwise collapse under its own abundance. They are not just ants. They are the march itself, the pulse of equilibrium written in mandibles and pheromones, forever moving, forever consuming, forever reminding the jungle that balance must be earned step by step, life by life. A sudden splash shatters the stillness of the riverbank. A large iguana, once basking on a sun-drenched branch, has hurled itself into the dark water below. For a few seconds, its green body flashes just beneath the surface, limbs tucked close, tail driving it forward with the fluid motion of a fish. Then it vanishes completely into the river's murk, dissolving into a realm where lizards are not expected to belong. This act, so abrupt, so seamless, encapsulates the iguana's unique role in the Amazon. It is a creature of thresholds, existing comfortably between two worlds that rarely overlap, the forest canopy above and the flowing waters below. Where most animals specialize, the iguana thrives by refusing confinement to a single realm, carrying with it traits of both land dweller and swimmer. To watch an iguana closely is to notice how its body is engineered for versatility. The long, muscular tail, comprising nearly half its total length, is a whip on land, used to defend against predators, but becomes an efficient propeller in water. Strong legs with sharp claws allow it to grip bark and scramble up steep banks, while the flattened body helps it navigate undergrowth and branches with surprising grace. The skin, covered in scales that vary from bright emerald to muted olive depending on light and age, serves both as camouflage against leaves and as armor against abrasion. Even the prominent dewlap, a flap of skin beneath the jaw, is multifunctional, a display signal for territorial defense, a thermoregulatory surface, and perhaps even a communication tool in dense vegetation where visibility is fleeting. Every part of the iguana's design whispers of compromise and adaptation, of a body evolved not for mastery of one habitat, but competence in many. The iguana's behavior reflects this dual existence. At dawn, it is a basker, soaking in sunlight on exposed branches to raise its body temperature after the chill of night. As a reptile, its metabolism depends on external heat, and the canopy provides both warmth and vantage. Yet as midday intensifies, the same sun becomes dangerous, risking overheating. At such times, the iguana simply shifts domains, slipping into shade or plunging into water, where evaporative cooling and convection help regulate its temperature. Few animals can switch thermal environments with such ease. In this sense, the iguana embodies flexibility not just in movement, but in physiology, maintaining balance through access to two radically different thermal landscapes. This adaptability extends to diet, where the iguana plays an understated but vital role in the Amazon's ecological cycles. Primarily herbivorous, it consumes leaves, fruits, and flowers, its strong jaws crushing fibrous plant matter that many other species ignore. In doing so, it acts as both regulator and distributor. By grazing selectively, iguanas influence the growth patterns of vegetation along riverbanks, preventing certain plants from overrunning others. Seeds consumed during feeding often pass through the digestive tract intact, deposited elsewhere in nutrient-rich feces. In this way, the iguana becomes a gardener of the forest, transporting genetic material between habitats, ensuring connectivity in a landscape where river currents, seasonal floods, and shifting soil already threaten to isolate plant populations. Its droppings sprout new growth, subtly reweaving the fabric of forest and riverbank with each movement. Predators, however, constantly test the iguana's ability to remain this bridge species. Raptors circle overhead, their keen eyes searching for a basking body exposed against bark. Jaguars and ocelots patrol the forest floor, opportunistic hunters that will ambush an inattentive lizard. In the river, caimans lie in wait, their ambush strategy perfected against prey that enters water as refuge. To survive such varied threats, iguanas employ a combination of vigilance and escape. The eyes, positioned laterally, provide nearly panoramic vision, and the nuchal crest, the spiny ridge along the back, can make their silhouette less appealing to predators. But their most consistent survival tool remains the leap, the sudden decision to abandon one world and enter another, diving from branch to water in an instant. In this unpredictability lies their greatest defense, a refusal to be confined to the rules of a single predator's domain. Reproduction further reveals their duality. Female iguanas descend from trees to dig burrows in sandy riverbanks, often traveling long distances to find suitable nesting sites. They lay clutches of dozens of eggs, relying on the warmth of the soil and the protection of location rather than direct parental care. This strategy ties their life cycle directly to the river's edge. Land provides food and basking space, water offers refuge, but the sandbanks, shaped by seasonal floods and currents, are where the next generation begins. The survival of hatchlings depends on precise timing. If flooding occurs too early, nests may be washed away, while prolonged drought leaves young vulnerable to terrestrial predators. Thus, the iguana's existence is calibrated not just to two worlds, but to the rhythmic dialogue between them. Even their communication hints at the role of a messenger. Iguanas are known to use visual signals, particularly head bobs and dewlap extensions, as social displays. These movements travel across space with the clarity of semaphore flags, visible even when sound is muffled by dense vegetation or rushing water. Some biologists speculate that these displays form a silent language, enabling iguanas to negotiate territory and hierarchy without constant physical conflict. In the broader symbolism of the river's pact, such signaling reinforces their position as intermediaries, creatures who carry messages across distance and between elements, ensuring that order is maintained with minimal disruption. The ecological consequences of their adaptability ripple outward. By dispersing seeds, controlling vegetation, and serving as prey for multiple predator guilds, iguanas knit together trophic levels that might otherwise remain loosely connected. They are not apex predators, nor are they insignificant grazers. They occupy a middle ground that sustains balance across scales. Remove them, and plants lose a disperser, predators lose a prey source, and riverbanks lose a regulator of vegetation. The bridge collapses, and with it, some of the delicate equilibrium between canopy and water. In many ways, the iguana represents the philosophy of resilience that governs the Amazon. Where the piranha enforces through teeth and the dart frog deters through toxins, the iguana survives through compromise and flexibility. It does not dominate any single arena, yet it persists in all, a quiet reminder that adaptability may be the most powerful survival tool of all. Its amphibious habits are not just curiosities, but living demonstrations of ecological negotiation, of how a species can serve multiple roles without excess specialization. The deeper theory suggests that the iguana may be more than a participant in the pact. It may be its messenger. Moving freely between canopy, riverbank, and current, it symbolizes connection itself, the thread that binds ecosystems into a coherent whole. In this interpretation, each dive into the river is not merely escape, but communication, a crossing from one realm to another, carrying information, energy, and seeds of continuity. The iguana does not enforce like the piranha or cleanse like the army ant. Instead, it carries, it connects, it reminds the Amazon that its power lies not in isolated parts, but in the flow between them. And yet, like so many of the river's guardians, the iguana is vulnerable to human disruption. Deforestation strips away basking sites and nesting grounds. Hunting for meat and the pet trade reduces populations unevenly, breaking local ecological links. Climate change alters the delicate timing of floods and droughts, leaving eggs exposed or drowned. Every interference weakens the iguana's ability to function as a bridge, silencing one of the voices in the Amazon's living dialogue. To stand on a riverbank and watch an iguana leap is to see more than a reptile seeking refuge. It is to witness the embodiment of adaptability, a species that thrives by belonging to two worlds at once. Its scales shimmer with the green of the forest, its tail carves arcs in the brown water, and in each movement lies a lesson about survival through flexibility. The iguana does not conquer its environment. It converses with it, flowing between elements as naturally as the river flows between banks. In the Pact of the Amazon, the iguana is the reminder that strength is not always found in force, but in the capacity to bridge, to shift, and to carry the forest's message wherever it must go. The Amazon at dusk takes on a different rhythm. The heat softens, the air thickens with mist rising from the river, and the chorus of insects swells to fill the fading light. From the undergrowth emerges a shape that seems almost prehistoric, a bulky silhouette, barrel-chested and heavy, moving with surprising quiet for its size. At first glance it could be mistaken for a pig or perhaps a strange horse, but closer inspection reveals something far more unique. This is the lowland tapir, the largest land mammal in the Amazon. At nearly 250 kilograms, it is a giant compared to most of its neighbors, yet it enters the water with barely a ripple, its dark form dissolving into the river's surface. Fish scatter, insects hover above its path, but the tapir itself moves unchallenged, almost unseen, as though the forest itself bends to accommodate its presence. The tapir's appearance belies its ecological importance. Despite its size, it is neither predator nor aggressor, relying instead on stealth, caution, and endurance. Its body is built for resilience, stocky legs capable of pushing through dense vegetation, thick hide resistant to thorns and insect bites, and a flexible, prehensile snout that acts as a foraging tool, plucking fruits and stripping leaves with delicate precision. This short trunk is one of its most distinctive features, combining the dexterity of a primate hand with the strength of a grazing muzzle. Through it, the tapir consumes hundreds of plant species, from soft shoots to tough fruits that few other animals can manage. In doing so, it plays the role of both harvester and distributor, linking plant life across the landscape through the simple act of feeding. Seed dispersal is where the tapir's influence becomes most profound. Unlike smaller frugivores, which tend to drop seeds close to the parent plant, tapirs travel long distances before defecating, carrying genetic material far from its origin. Their digestive systems do not destroy seeds, but scarify them, softening the tough coats and making germination more likely. Each pile of dung becomes a miniature nursery, fertilized and placed in a new location where the seed has a chance to grow without competing against its parent. Studies have shown that tapirs disperse some of the largest seeds in the Amazon, species that depend almost exclusively on these giants for propagation. Without tapirs, such trees would struggle to reproduce, narrowing the forest's diversity and eroding its structural stability. In this way, the tapir is a keystone species. Its absence would cause disproportionate damage to the ecosystem, unraveling connections invisible to the casual eye. Despite its herbivorous diet and peaceful disposition, the tapir is no simple grazer. It actively shapes the landscape through its feeding choices and movements. By trampling undergrowth, it creates small pathways that open space for other animals to move. These trails, used repeatedly, connect feeding grounds to water sources, forming subtle networks across the forest floor. Smaller mammals and ground birds often follow these tracks, benefiting from the tapir's ability to push through dense thickets. When it wallows in muddy pools to cool its body, it creates shallow depressions that later serve as micro-habitats for amphibians and insects. Its influence is both direct and indirect, creating opportunities for countless species that share its territory. Predation is an ever-present threat, yet the tapir survives through a combination of strength and discretion. Jaguars, the apex hunters of the Amazon, are among the few predators capable of bringing down an adult tapir, ambushing them near river crossings or along narrow trails. Pumas too may take calves, and caimans occasionally strike from the water. But tapirs possess surprising agility for their size. When threatened, they can sprint through the forest at remarkable speed, crashing through obstacles that would slow a lighter animal. Their dense muscles and robust skeleton make them difficult prey even for determined hunters. Still, the cost of predation ensures that tapirs remain cautious and largely nocturnal, preferring to forage under the cover of darkness when fewer threats lurk nearby. The tapir's relationship with water reveals another dimension of its role. These mammals are excellent swimmers, capable of crossing wide rivers and even submerging themselves entirely to escape danger. Their bodies, though heavy, are buoyant, and their flexible snouts act as snorkels when only the top of the head breaks the surface. Such behavior connects them not just to the forest floor, but to the waterways themselves, enabling them to transport seeds across river barriers that would otherwise isolate plant populations. In this way, the tapir acts as a genetic bridge, stitching together fragmented landscapes into a continuous whole. Its silent crossings carry with them the promise of renewal, an understated act of guardianship that sustains the Amazon's complexity. Tapirs also play a role in disease regulation. By consuming fallen fruit that might otherwise rot and attract parasites, they reduce concentrations of harmful organisms in certain areas. Their dung, though rich in seeds, is also quickly colonized by dung beetles, which bury and recycle nutrients into the soil. This process not only fertilizes the forest, but also limits the spread of pests. Such contributions, while subtle, demonstrate how even seemingly passive behaviors weave into the larger network of ecological balance. From an evolutionary perspective, tapirs are living relics. Their lineage stretches back tens of millions of years, and fossils reveal that relatives once roamed across North America, Europe, and Asia. Today, only 4 species survive, scattered across South America and Southeast Asia, remnants of a once widespread family. The Amazon's lowland tapir carries with it this ancient legacy, a reminder that endurance itself can be a form of power. Unlike the flashy deterrence of the dart frog or the fierce enforcement of the piranha, the tapir's contribution is longevity, the quiet persistence of a species that has weathered ice ages, extinctions, and shifting continents. It endures not through aggression, but through adaptability and constancy, anchoring the forest in the slow rhythm of its life cycle. In the context of the river's PACT, the tapir is the stabilizer. It does not police with teeth or march in endless columns. Instead, it ensures continuity through presence, through the steady dispersal of seeds and the quiet maintenance of trails and habitats. Its strength lies in what it allows others to do: trees to grow, birds to nest, predators to hunt, and smaller mammals to move. It is the hidden guardian, less visible than the spectacle of ants or the flash of poison frogs, but no less essential. Remove it, and the forest begins to unravel in ways subtle at first, then catastrophic. Yet this guardian faces threats unlike those it has evolved to withstand. Deforestation destroys its feeding grounds, hunting for bushmeat and sport reduces populations, and habitat fragmentation isolates groups, preventing genetic exchange. Tapirs reproduce slowly, with females giving birth to a single calf after a long gestation. Such a pace cannot offset heavy losses, making them particularly vulnerable to human impact. In regions where they have been extirpated, researchers observe cascading ecological effects. Seed dispersal declines, forest regeneration slows, and certain tree species begin to vanish. The stabilizer, once removed, leaves behind imbalance that no other species can easily correct. To see a tapir in the wild is to glimpse a paradox, the largest mammal of the Amazon, yet among its quietest presences. Its power is not in spectacle, but in subtlety, not in predation, but in patience. It slips into the river with barely a sound, carries the future of the forest in its gut, and reshapes landscapes one footprint at a time. Its life is a testament to the idea that guardianship can be quiet, that continuity does not require dominance, and that balance is sustained as much by endurance as by force. In the greater story of the Amazon's PACT, the tapir represents the anchor. Where ants march and frogs warn, where piranhas enforce and iguanas connect, the tapir steadies. It is the mammal that binds centuries of growth, ensuring that trees rise, rivers remain fertile, and countless species find a place to exist. As the forest darkens and the last light fades from the water's surface, the tapir disappears once more into the understory, leaving behind only ripples. Those ripples are more than water disturbed. They are the echoes of balance, spreading outward into an ecosystem that depends on the silent guardian more than it will ever reveal. At dawn, the Amazon River is a mirror of shifting gold. Mist curls upward from its surface, swallowing the canopy in a haze that blurs the line between water and sky. The calls of howler monkeys reverberate like distant thunder, and from the banks, the air vibrates with the wing beats of macaws and the whistles of hidden frogs. From above, this river seems eternal, a vein of life pulsing through the world's greatest rainforest. Yet below that placid expanse lies an invisible architecture, one not of stone or steel, but of flesh and instinct. A network of species whose interactions shape the very survival of the forest. To understand the Amazon is not to study individual creatures in isolation, but to recognize them as parts of a living contract, a pact that binds predator to prey, herbivore to plant, river to canopy. The piranha offers the first lesson in this treaty. Known to outsiders as agents of frenzy and terror, they are in truth regulators, enforcing the rules of survival with teeth that strip weakness from the system. Their swarming attacks, infamous though they may be, serve a broader purpose, ensuring that decay does not accumulate, that injury and illness do not linger unchecked in the water. In their precision, they are less monsters than custodians, maintaining the hygiene of the river. They embody the principle that the pact does not allow stagnation. Every ripple they create reinforces the law that only the fit and the vigilant may endure. Not far from the water's edge, the poison dart frog issues its own decree. Barely larger than a coin, its neon skin glows with chemical defiance. To predators, it is a warning, as unmistakable as a red light in darkness. Touch me, and you may not live. The frog's toxins, drawn from its diet of alkaloid-rich insects, make it a biochemical firewall, a living alarm system against intrusion. It represents deterrence in its purest form, reminding the forest that danger can be concentrated into the smallest bodies. And yet, its warning radiates far beyond itself, shaping entire food webs through mimicry and fear. The pact, it seems, has enforcers not only of teeth, but of chemistry, subtle defenses that prevent the system from tipping into chaos. Deeper in the understory, the forest floor ripples with the movement of army ants. Their columns surge like dark rivers of muscle and mandible, sweeping aside everything in their path. Individually blind and fragile, together they form a superorganism, a collective intelligence that acts with uncanny precision. They are not simply predators, but engineers of disturbance, driving prey into motion, opening opportunities for birds, lizards, and even mammals that shadow their raids. Their endless marches do more than consume. They redistribute energy, prune the weak, and remind the forest that balance is achieved through motion. In their columns, we glimpse the circuitry of the Amazon itself, lines of living current that keep the system from falling into disorder. High above, the iguana bridges worlds. Its body, built for both climbing and swimming, allows it to shift effortlessly between tree and river, leaf and current. It grazes on vegetation, disperses seeds, and regulates growth along the riverbanks, its movements ensuring continuity between ecosystems that would otherwise drift apart. When danger approaches, it plunges into water, evading predators by changing domains in an instant. In the broader treaty, the iguana is the messenger, the amphibious shifter that carries signals between realms. Its adaptability symbolizes a truth central to the pact. Survival depends on connection, on the ability to flow between boundaries rather than be trapped within them. And then there is the tapir, the largest of the pact's guardians, yet the most unobtrusive. Moving with quiet power, it disperses seeds across vast distances, ensuring the regeneration of the forest itself. Its dung, rich with undigested seeds, plants the future in the soil of riverbanks and clearings, making it not just a consumer, but a creator of landscapes. Predators test it, floods reshape its world, yet it endures through strength without aggression, its ancient lineage marking it as a survivor of countless ecological upheavals. The tapir embodies stability. In the pact, it is the anchor, the silent guardian that holds the system steady while others enforce, deter, or connect. Taken together, these 5 species form a pattern. The piranha enforces through teeth, the dart frog warns through color and chemistry, the army ants cleanse through movement, the iguana bridges worlds, and the tapir stabilizes through endurance. None of them alone could maintain the Amazon's balance. But woven together, they embody a system that appears less accidental than aligned, a living treaty inscribed not in parchment, but in behavior, physiology, and ecological roles. Their interactions create a rhythm of enforcement, warning, cleansing, connection, and stability that sustains the forest through its floods, droughts, and endless cycles of growth and decay. What emerges is a question larger than any one species. Could this be nature's way of defending its greatest river? The Amazon's lifeblood is not guarded by walls or gates, but by alliances hidden in plain sight. Each guardian plays its part, ensuring that collapse is prevented not by dominance, but by cooperation. It is a treaty of balance, forged not through negotiation, but through evolution, and one that has endured for millions of years. And yet, treaties can be broken. Human intrusion, deforestation, pollution, overfishing, climate change threatens to unravel the pact piece by piece. Remove the tapir, and the forest's regeneration falters. Poison the insects and the dart frog's warning fades. Overfish the rivers and the piranha's enforcement weakens. Each disruption is more than a loss of a species. It is the unraveling of an ancient contract that has kept the Amazon alive. If these creatures are indeed guardians bound by a hidden pact, then humanity stands at a dangerous threshold. The Amazon is not just an ecosystem. It is a living treaty, a system of checks and balances older than human civilization, maintained by creatures we often overlook or misunderstand. To break that treaty is to dismantle the very mechanisms that sustain life, not only in the forest, but across the planet. The river does not need our recognition to continue its flow, but it may not survive our disregard. As the aerial sweep pulls back, the Amazon stretches toward the horizon, an endless expanse of green fractured by veins of water. Beneath its canopy, teeth flash, colors glow, columns march, bodies leap, and giants move in silence. Together they form the river's pact, a covenant of life and balance. The question is not whether the treaty exists, the evidence flows all around us, but whether we will honor it or break it without understanding the consequences.